All right, franchisees, listen up because this is someone you're going to want to learn from. This week, we're talking to Sabrina Denny, who owns Exercise Coach in Liberty, Missouri. She is their top franchisee, award winning. I can't even name all the awards she's won at her brand conference this year. Welcome, Sabrina. We're so excited to have you here on the show.
Thank you, April. I'm excited to be here.
So, Sabrina, prior to becoming this amazing franchisee that so many other franchisees in your brand are looking up to these days, what was it that you were doing prior to purchasing that franchise unit?
Yeah, so actually, prior to the exercise coach, I was actually still in the franchising space. I owned a different brand. I owned a unit of the tutoring center. And that was a little bit different situation than with the exercise coach because I actually purchased kind of a struggling location of the tutoring center. So kind of got to get the experience of, okay, what's it like to really kind of come in, kind of get back to the basics, really start to implement the playbook of the franchise to kind of turn things around. And then, had the opportunity, did that for 6 years, really kind of got it to where it was, one of the top performing locations in the country. And then was able to, exit that and knew that I wanted something in the franchising space still for that next adventure. Didn't really know exactly what that would look like, but I knew I wanted to stay in the franchise world just because, I like getting a playbook, but then really getting to optimize that playbook. I'm not the creative type myself, so I like having that starting point, but really being able to then look at the operations, really kind of build something off of that playbook.
That's awesome. So, were you into fitness then prior to owning an exercise coach, or have you developed a love for that through your brand, your current brand?
Yeah, so professionally not into fitness, but definitely personally on an individual level, absolutely. Sports were my thing growing up, particularly soccer and running. I played soccer in college, and then even after college, I coached different youth teams. Still played in some adult leagues. So fitness had always been a part of my life personally. Never really saw a opportunity previously of okay, that could actually be a career path. But when I started looking at different franchises, you know, I knew I wanted something where I could still make an impact. That was one of the things I love most about the tutoring center was really being able to, make a difference in the lives of those kids. And that really just feeds my soul. So I knew I wanted that next opportunity to be something where I could still continue to make a difference, make an impact. And as I started exploring different opportunities, something in the fitness space just felt like that next kind of logical step.
Okay, now you mentioned soccer. So we're right now in the middle of the World Cup. We cannot
Yes.
we can't just pass over this soccer drop without saying like, okay, are you totally into the World Cup right now?
So I am, but I admittedly I follow women's soccer much more closely. So, the women's national team, the women's World Cup, that, I'm all in. I know all the players, diehard fan. The men's game, yeah, it's fun and I watch it, but I'm not as familiar on kind of the world scale of the different players. So I enjoy watching the games, but don't have any real skin in the game now that the US team's out.
Well, I don't know if I shared this with you, but my nephew, he is involved in the Special Olympics. In fact, he is involved right in the area in where you own your franchise
Wow.
because yeah, my family lives right around you, which we'll
Mhm.
we'll get to that in a moment. But I live across the state and he and one other athlete were chosen for their whole region to hold the flag, be a flag bearer at the FIFA game that was at Arrowhead last week.
That's incredible. That's
It was
incredible. That's
so
such a cool
cool.
opportunity.
It was so cool, and he got all this swag. I mean, like, he's FaceTiming us, and they gave him cleats.
Wow.
We knew he was gonna get, like, water bottle and, a jersey or whatnot, but he got cleats, he got a full warm-up outfit, he got 2 backpacks. I don't know, just like swag on swag on swag, especially for a game when it was like 104 degrees outside. He's got a full track suit and all these other things, but such a cool opportunity. So we've really been following. I'm not into soccer. I'm the person that if I'm running, like everyone needs to run because and people
You're being chased.
no, people will say, "Someone's chasing you." I'm like, "No, I was a kickboxer. Someone's chasing me, I'm gonna turn around and fight them." Like, if I'm running, it's a tsunami, like, something we all need to be running from is if you see me running.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah,
That's
so
super cool though about your nephew. That's been one of the really cool things with the World Cup is, with Kansas City being a host city, that has definitely been just cool seeing all the different international fans around and just it does. It kind of even though I don't follow the men's game as much, it definitely kind of sucks you in and it's fun too, especially the teams that are based out of Kansas City for their camps. It's been cool. The England, Argentina is actually one that's here too. So everybody's looking for the Messi sightings. And so it's just some cool energy that's in the air.
yeah. Well, and I think it's such an opportunity, and I hope that the majority of people are taking this away from this experience, but you go to a sports game as a fan in the stands, and you're not asking the person next to you like, "Oh, excuse me, what political party do you belong to?" Like, what religion do you belong to before I decide if I'm going to cheer next to you for our common team, right? Like, it's like people totally just band together, and I think that's such a great space where it really demonstrates we have way more in common than we do differently, and we don't actually care about these things until some outside influence is like forcing us to care or telling us we should care about these things. So that's one of my big hopes coming out of this with this melting pot of culture that we've brought in from all these different countries is like, hey, we're all here to enjoy soccer. Like, it's amazing.
Absolutely, actually, so a lot of the coaching that I did after college was I worked with helped kind of co-found a nonprofit organization that worked with inner city kids in Kansas City, helped kind of using soccer as a mentorship tool. And that was one of the coolest things we saw through that program was we ended up having a lot of refugee kiddos. So we had kids from, Sudan, Egypt, some from Iraq, just I think we had 13 different countries represented, about 13 different languages being spoken, but soccer was that unifying game. When they're all in the same field, even if they can't fully communicate, soccer is kind of that commonality that, set aside the differences and just brings everybody together in one community. So it's hopefully that on a larger scale with the World Cup, we'll have some overlap there.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's go back to why we're here, which is franchising. But, one of the things that I do love about what you've done in your gyms is you've also built a culture. And it the exercise coach, because you work one on one with most of your clients, it could actually be the opposite. It could be very siloed and very much like I come in, I see my coach and I leave, right? But you've transcended that and you've created that culture. Can you talk a little bit about how you've done that with your team and with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely been something over the last 3 to 4 years that's been probably kind of our top priority. We've been very, very intentional about the type of culture that we want to build, especially just with a little bit the demographics that we tend to work with. Where a 20-minute workout, we use equipment that really adapts to the user and which allows us to give a very efficient workout, but also a very safe workout. So we like to say that we're the gym for people who don't like gyms. It's a smaller, more private type setting. It's not the big, loud, big box gym feel. So with that, a lot of people who come to us, there's a lot of anxiety coming in. They're nervous. They don't know what to expect. They're afraid it's going to be, just a massive building, people throwing weights around, and it's not at all the environment that we have. But we really try. So once they come in, they see, okay, this is different. This I'll give this a chance. It might be able to, this might be a good fit for me. Then we really try to be very intentional of, it's not just coaching Sally through a workout, but it's getting to know Sally, getting to know, why is she really working out? Is it, it's people may want to lose weight, they may want to be stronger, but that's not the real driver. They want to be stronger so they can pick up their grandkids. They want to lose weight so they can keep up with their family when they're on vacation. So really, we've tried to strive to get to know our clients on that deeper level and make sure that they feel like this is a place where they're truly known, they're seen, they're cared for. You know, even just little things, just remembering their birthdays, remembering that, hey, their grandkids were in town last weekend, remembering to follow up and ask on those things. But then also, just being the friendly, smiling faces when they walk in the door. A lot of our clients will joke as they'll walk in the door, and it's they say it's like Cheers. Everybody knows your name. So they walk in,
Mhm.
and you've got 6 or 7 different coaches. Hey, Phyllis. Hey, Sally. Hey, Jim. And it's really built this very community feel, even though it's only, 3 or 4 people here at a time. And that's helped us really get where it's not that siloed effect. A client comes in, they might be working with me on a particular day, but they know that the team of coaches, they're still being seen, they're being acknowledged. And that, I think, over time has really just kind of transcended the culture that we've tried to build, where about more than just the workouts. It's about how they feel when they're here, and ultimately that's what helps keep them coming back so that they can reach those goals. And April, you've been in the fitness space, so you can get a good workout a lot of different ways, a lot of different places. But what ultimately makes it effective is, can you do it consistently? And I think what we've been able to do, and what we've really tried to do at least, is build that culture where it's just very natural for that client to keep coming back consistently so they do see those goals. Actually,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
had a client sorry. I had a client just the other day tell me, she's been with us about 4 years. She was with us almost since we opened, and I was working with her, and she looked at me and she goes, I still hate exercise. And the only reason I come back is because I like you guys. And I think that to me just really kind of highlighted how important just that relationship building piece of it is.
100%. And it's extraordinarily important for those people who truly hate exercise to have that one-on-one accountability as well, right?
Hmm.
I don't like the phrase holding people accountable because I don't believe that you can hold someone accountable. Accountability comes from within. It's a choice that we make to be accountable, to something. Now we can hold people responsible, which is what happens in criminal justice world, but holding people accountable, I don't believe in that. However, creating an environment where people can be accountable, and I think that's what you've done is taken it where, people who hate exercising, they have an appointment. They know that it's with a real person, that it's with someone that they respect, that's treated them well. So they're not going to miss that appointment because it says something about their character to leave that person hanging even if they don't love the exercise. They know that they're not even gonna go and have to focus on the exercise because that person is there. They're gonna be more focused on the relationship, and the exercise is an undercurrent that's occurring, that's happening as they do it.
Absolutely. And I think that's having that appointment it makes a huge, and just like you said, having an appointment with a real person. They know that it's not just their schedule that it's impacting somebody else's. And even beyond the schedule, it's just I believe that our clients know that we generally like seeing them. We want them to be here, and that we are. We are not mad at them if they miss an appointment, but do we miss them? Absolutely. And I think that too helps with that retention because if they miss a session, it happens, but they know that they're going to get a friendly phone call from us of, hey, Betty, we really missed you yesterday. We'd love to get you back on the schedule for that next session. So that, missing one workout doesn't all of a sudden become, okay, I've missed the last 4 months of workouts and nobody's noticed. So why would I even go back? They know that if we don't see them for a day or two, we're going to reach out just to check on them.
Yeah, well, I can attest to that because as you know, and the audience, spoiler alert, both of my parents are clients of Sabrina's. And my mom just told me a story where she said, so my mother, she's been allowed to work remotely for a few years now, and they just called her back into the office. So she's going through a period of adjustment now where previously she could make her exercise coach appointment maybe at lunch, and now she's having to make it either first thing in the morning at 6 a.m. or after she gets off, at 5. And so she was telling me, I knew I had an appointment. So I was finishing up at work and I was going to leave by this time. And then I get a call and she's like, Kathy, where are you? She said, my appointment's at 5:40. And she's like, 5:20. And then she's like, oh no, but so I appreciate that because it keeps my parents who hate exercise accountable. And I know that it's so good for them to be doing something, particularly in the strength training world. Because even if they were going to get some exercise, quite frankly, it would be, organic from like, walking while they're shopping or like dad loves to go to the casino, right? So they get some walking in, but they would never, never, never do any type of strength training on their own. And I know that you also now do stretch and balance as well, which particularly for that age group, I mean, for all of us, quite frankly, I woke up this morning and my hips are tight and I'm like, gosh, I really need to stretch. But, but those things just do get harder, particularly to do alone, when it hurts to stretch, when it's hard to reach things that used to be easier, it's kind of defeating, or it can be. And I think really having that person there to help you through that is a game changer.
Yeah, it does. It just we really try to just remove some of the friction so that it's, because it is, most of us, we don't just inherently want to go exercise or want to go stretch or want to go work on our balance. So anything we can do as coaches to help remove any of the friction they have to getting to that, it just helps with that follow through. And just like you said, I think a big obstacle that we see a lot of times is the pain. As we age, we have different aches and pains, and that's what's so nice about some of the technology that we use. It really helps us account for a lot of that. We can dial in range of motion specific to a client, so we can keep the work, in the muscles and not the joints. The resistance is adaptive throughout the exercises, so we can always make sure, we're working at a proper intensity to actually stimulate the body to change, but doing it in a very safe way so that we're not experiencing the pain. And that's what a lot of our clients really appreciate is, for a lot of them, this is the first time they've been able to exercise in recent years and not have the pain. And again, that just helps with their consistency of, oh, this doesn't make me hurt. It's actually making me feel better. And then you just start to create that momentum. They're feeling better. So then they want to keep doing it. And it just compounds over time.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I know our listeners, they're small business owners and franchisees. So we've talked a lot about your interaction with the customers and how, and a lot of this is model specific, right? So the model has created a lot of the technology and these processes for how you would interact with a client in these one-on-one scenarios, and that's, I'm sure, why you chose exercise coach. But there's so much more that goes into business ownership in order to become the number one franchisee in a system. Quite frankly, just to become the top 25% of a system. So what is two two or three like things that you feel are linchpins in your journey that have taken you, or things you had to learn, or like a mindset shift or an action you took that helped you make it to the next stage, or overcome something that was maybe a bottleneck.
Great question. And I guess, first of all, I don't want to oversell it. We're definitely our studio's in the top 5 nationwide. So yeah, we've really been very fortunate in the last couple of years to see some pretty significant growth, particularly once we added the stretch and balance. But I would say, one thing that's really helped us move from just kind of, a average performing studio to, performing what I'd consider really well is, just the focus on the team and the employees and understanding that, and you know me well enough to know this is still something I'm definitely working on, but knowing and accepting that I can't do it all myself. That it's, for us to truly grow and to be able to touch as many lives as possible through the exercise coach, I have to be willing to grow my team, delegate to my team, let them take on additional responsibilities. One that's going to empower them where they want to keep learning and growing and being a part of the company. But ultimately, it lets us better serve the clients. So that's absolutely still a work in progress, but something that has really allowed us to grow is just really investing in my team and coaching them up, building them up, helping them, or I guess maybe making sure that anybody that I'm bringing on board has that same mindset and outlook of, hey, we're here because we want to truly make a difference. We want to help people through exercise. And then just really working to have that mindset, that culture in everything we do, I think has really over time, just incrementally helped us grow. I would say another thing, let me think about that for a minute. And I would say just really being able to build systems because that's what we've found, especially we added the stretching and balance services right at a year ago. So we're about a year into that. And that was really transformative for our growth and for the business, for the revenue. But with that brought exponentially more clients, but also exponentially just more sessions that we're servicing in a day. And what we found was, what worked when we had, 100 clients doesn't operationally work quite as well when we have, 180 clients. So it's forced us to not just use a system of sticky notes to keep track of everything. We've really had to make sure that all of our different operational procedures have a framework, have a system, and that then anybody who touches that system or that process is following that same system so that we're all on the same page.
I think that's so important. I also think, we as business owners hear that all the time. We hear, "Oh, you've gotta get out of your own way. You have to delegate. You need systems." What do you think for you, like, what had to happen? And maybe it was an internal thing, or maybe it was, having the right person on your team or something. But what had to happen for you to actually make the shift and make that behavioral change from, okay, I know I need to do this, but I'm kind of way more comfortable over here with the sticky note system or with doing things myself? Like, what was the breaking point or that, like, watershed moment where it was like, "All right, something has to change."
Yeah, I think it was maybe a series of kind of things, but I do think it all kind of, yeah, and you've been instrumental in that for sure, in helping just with my mindset. Because I do. I think that that change really did have to start with my mindset because I had, for as long as I've been in business, both at the tutoring center and the exercise coach, I've always had that mindset of, nobody cares about my business as much as I do, that it's easier to just do it myself than teach somebody else to do it. And as we grew, it kind of got to this point of where I felt like, okay, I can either have a really successful business and just work crazy amounts of hours, be overwhelmed, be stressed out all the time, or I could have a mediocre business and have some balance in my life. And I think it was listening to one of your webinars for the first time that light bulb kind of came on. And I thought, hey, maybe, maybe it is possible to actually have both of those. Maybe you can have a really successful business and also have some work life balance. And that was kind of like my aha moment. It definitely didn't then just switch my behaviors, but for the first time, it opened up my mind of, hey, this might actually be possible. And I think, ever since then, it's a series of small decisions, day after day of, hey, okay, I'm in this moment. I could just take care of this myself and it get done pretty quick. Or, I can take the time, I can document how to do it, I can teach my team how to do it. It's going to take a lot more time now, but then I'm never going to have to actually do that myself again. And as I started, kind of dabbling in that and saying, okay, that initial upfront effort really is saving me a lot of time down the road, you kind of start to, it's the positive reinforcement. You start to see that happen a few different times and you're like, okay, maybe this actually can work. And do I do it perfectly? Absolutely not. But I think my mindset, the more often than not now is, hey, let me take a step back in this moment. What can I do? What system is currently missing that's causing this bottleneck? And if we is it worth taking that little bit more time now, put that system in place, train up the team on it so that we can keep growing and focusing on maybe bigger, more important things as we move forward.
So, ironically, if you noticed, you just described the journey through fitness as well, right? Like it's a
That's
lot of
mhm,
little things that, there's little decisions you have to make every day and it has to be consistent and more effort up front
mhm,
means easier down the road.
good.
You know,
Absolutely.
I do think fitness, having been in fitness myself, it is the perfect analogy for business so often when we're talking about that mindset journey of putting in the effort for the long-term payout and the long-term rewards. And I do think that, of course, another enemy of ours in that realm right now is just all of the things coming at us from the environment, the different ways, we're interacting with digital media and things like that that are trying to rob us of that attention span and of that patience for the long-term payout for the effort we put out today, which I think is another, and then that might actually be the biggest lesson for the generation coming up into entrepreneurship is that the instant gratification will sabotage you in business. You've got to understand that your effort today is meant to pay off, not in the next moment necessarily.
Mhm, absolutely, and I think that that can be a tough mindset for all of us sometimes, because it is, because that sometimes the payoff is it's so far down the road that I think we have to be very intentional about kinda connecting those dots so that we
Mhm.
do keep that momentum going.
Right, and we have to be aware of how big our vision is and keep our eye on that bigger vision, right? It's the big vision that makes you patient to do all the things that have to come together for the big vision to be realized. If we only make goals for ourselves that are like short term, for instance, if it's like, okay, I've got to pay rent, so I need this much in revenue and I'm willing to put in the effort to get that much. Well, guess what? Next month, you're going to have that same like panic moment and that same urgency with, I have to do it again to make the rent. Like, how do I do something that's gonna create consistency, longevity, a lot of the same words, buzzwords that we do here in fitness. So, but you've done a great job at it. I mean, I'm sure our audience can tell you're so humble, Sabrina, and, you deserve all the credit. You're the one making it happen, and we're just so grateful to have you in our universe at Secret Sauce. You're amazing, and we love working with you.
Thank you. I really love working with you guys, and it's been so helpful for my business, and really it's kind of kind of to your point of kind of the overlap of business and fitness. That was kind of one of my light bulb moments early on too, when I was kind of looking at is it something should I join Secret Sauce? Should I join the Infinite Franchisee Program? And I got to thinking, I was thinking about some of the consultations that I do with clients, and literally a phrase that I would use was, you know professional athletes have coaches, CEOs have coaches, everybody does better with a coach. And then one day it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute, that's the same for me. Like, I need a coach if I want to be good at this. So then it was just the next logical step of I know I see it on a daily basis with our clients. We even with myself. If I do my workout here at the exercise coach just by myself, I don't perform nearly as well as if I have one of the other coaches take me through a workout. And that's exactly the same in business. Can I kind of muddle through and figure all this out on my own? Probably most of it. Would it take a heck of a lot longer and I probably stumble a lot more along the way? Absolutely. So having a coach, whether it's in business, whether it's in fitness, just exponentially speeds up how quickly we can get to those results.
I couldn't agree more, and I do I love the name of your company because it's so, so clear, like, exercise coach. That's what you're gonna get, right? You're gonna get exercise and a coach, and I think what you just phrased beautifully sums that up as to what really people are desiring in fitness, particularly as things become more of a struggle. Like, if you're a high performing athlete, then, like, maybe exercise coach isn't the right fit for you. But if you're someone who, and I'm not saying it's not, because I
Sure.
bet a lot of high performing athletes could jump in, get a 20-minute workout, and be back at whatever else they're high
Mhm.
performing at. And it's the perfect thing for them. But also for the person who struggles with that, the person who isn't the high performing athlete, who needs that encouragement, who needs that accountability, who needs that camaraderie and that social aspect in order to bring enough fun into it so that they won't quit. It's like that's what you guys have put together, and it's just amazing. And we think we love what you're doing, and we know that you're going to expand and take over the world, and and bring exercise coach to a lot more communities.
But if we are, we're definitely looking forward to seeing what that, expansion in the future can look like. Absolutely. And just being able to, help as many people in the Kansas City market or even beyond as we continue to grow the team.
Awesome. Well, if people are looking to come try the exercise coach, how would they do that, Sabrina?
Yeah, so we offer 2 free sessions to come in and try us out, and what we do at that first session, we really sit down, spend time, talking through someone's goals, their health history, what's really important to them so that we can customize that right program for them. And so, yeah, we'd love to have anybody come try out those 2 free sessions. And really, the best way to kind of get set up with that is just to go to our website. It's super easy, just exercisecoach.com. And you can request right there to try out your 2 free sessions.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for being on the show today, Sabrina.
My pleasure. Thank you, April.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ask April Porter podcast. If you found value in today's episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow franchisees and small business owners. To access the resources I mentioned during this episode, check out our show notes.